Most people think financial collapse happens suddenly, like a crash, a single event, one bad headline. But that's not how it really works. Real financial breakdowns are quiet at first. They happen in slow motion. And by the time the public notices, the outcome is already locked in. Right now, the global financial system is doing something that should concern anyone paying attention. Not because of one number, not because of one country, but because of how all the pieces are moving together. Let me explain. Over the last several decades, the world has been running on debt. Not productive debt, not investment-driven growth, but financialized debt, debt used to sustain lifestyles, asset prices, and political stability. This system worked when interest rates were falling. It worked when globalization kept costs low.
It worked when demographics were favorable. None of those conditions exist anymore, and that's the problem. Interest rates can no longer stay near zero without breaking currencies. Globalization is reversing, and demographics are now working against growth, not for it. Yet governments are still acting as if the old system is intact. They're still spending, still borrowing, still promising, but the math no longer works.
When debt grows faster than real output, you don't get prosperity. You get fragility. And fragile systems don't fail all at once. They fracture. First, you see volatility. Markets stop trending smoothly. Big moves happen for no obvious reason. Then you see policy confusion. Central banks contradict themselves. Governments change narratives every few months. Then you see capital quietly repositioning. Not retail money. Institutional money. Sovereign money. This part matters. When large pools of capital move, they don't announce it, they don't ring bells, they don't warn you. They simply stop allocating to certain assets and start allocating elsewhere. You don't see this on social media. You see it in balance sheets, cross-border flows, and long-term policy decisions. For example, over the last few years, we've seen a measurable shift away from dependence on a single reserve system, not abandonment, diversification, gold reserves rising, bilateral trade agreements bypassing legacy settlement systems, strategic stockpiling of commodities. None of this is accidental. It's preparation. And here's the key point most people miss. This is not about predicting a crash tomorrow. It's about understanding direction. Financial systems don't break because people panic. People panic because systems have already broken. By the time headlines catch up, the options are gone. This is why relying on mainstream narratives is dangerous. Mainstream analysis is reactive by design. It explains yesterday's move, not tomorrow's risk. And it always assumes stability until instability is undeniable. But stability is not binary. It erodes, and erosion looks boring until it isn't. Let's talk about asset behavior. In healthy systems, assets reflect productivity. Companies grow because output grows. Currencies hold value because trust is earned. In late-stage systems, assets inflate because liquidity demands it. Stocks rise even as margins compress. Real estate becomes unaffordable relative to incomes. Bond markets send signals that contradict official messaging. These are not coincidences. They are symptoms of a system being stretched beyond its design limits. And historically, when systems reach this stage, outcomes narrow. You don't get infinite adjustments, you get regime shifts. Sometimes those shifts are inflationary. Sometimes they're deflationary. Often they're both, depending on where you stand. But they always involve loss of purchasing power for the unprepared. That's the uncomfortable truth. Most people lose not because they're irresponsible, but because they trust systems that are structurally changing. They assume tomorrow will function like yesterday. And that assumption is expensive. So, what does intelligent positioning look like in an environment like this? First, it means rejecting binary thinking. This is not about everything collapsing or everything being fine. Reality lives in the middle. Second, it means prioritizing resilience over optimization. Highly optimized systems break easily, redundant, and even personal decision-making. Third, it means understanding that volatility is not the enemy. Blindness is. Volatility creates opportunity for those who understand it, and damage for those who don't. And finally, it means accepting that stability is no longer guaranteed by policy. For decades, people were trained to believe that central banks could smooth every cycle.
That every downturn could be fixed with liquidity. That belief is now being tested. Because when debt levels are high enough, every solution creates a new problem. Print too much, and currencies weaken. Tighten too much, and systems seize. There's no painless option anymore, only trade-offs. This is why we're seeing growing divergence between official confidence and market behavior. The messaging says stability. The signals say caution. And when those two diverge long enough, reality eventually wins. The purpose of understanding this isn't feared, it's clarity. Clarity allows you to make decisions before pressure forces them. IT allows you to think in probabilities instead of narratives. In structures instead of headlines. Because the biggest risk right now isn't collapse, that it's complacency, that it's assuming that because something hasn't happened yet, it won't happen at all, that it's mistaking delay for safety. History doesn't work that way. Systems resolve and balance eventually. Always. The only question is who absorbs the cost. Those who see the shift early can adapt. Those who don't are forced to react. And reaction is always more expensive than... That's the reality, not at the end, but no longer at the beginning.